The silence in the garden is not the peace of tranquility. It is the suffocating weight of a choice that cannot be undone. You are standing at the threshold of a decision that will define not just your day, but the very architecture of your existence. You feel the pulse in your temples, the sudden, sharp realization that the consequences of your actions are no longer hypothetical. They are immediate. They are irreversible.
Why do we spend our lives frantically looking for someone else to point the finger at?
Think back to the most critical failure you have encountered in the last year. Perhaps it was a project that collapsed despite your efforts, a relationship that drifted into discord, or a professional ambition that stalled at the finish line. What was your immediate, knee-jerk reaction? If you were like most, the internal narrative moved instantly to external variables. The market was volatile. The team was unresponsive. The circumstances were unfair. This pattern, this reflexive urge to cast blame outward, is not a modern invention. It is the primal inheritance of the Adam archetype. In the ancient, resonant prose of the Genesis narrative, the first human encounters a moment of total exposure. The garden, once a place of seamless unity, has become a place of profound separation. When questioned about a boundary that was crossed, the first response recorded in history is not an admission of error. It is a defense. It is a redirect. The immediate impulse is to point toward another, to cite the environment, to name the circumstances. This is the Adam syndrome. It is the psychological defense mechanism that triggers the moment we realize we have fallen short of our own potential or the expectations placed upon us. We become architects of excuses rather than architects of our own lives. Consider the weight of that moment. By externalizing the blame, the archetypal human traded his sovereign agency for a temporary shield against shame. But there is a heavy price for this trade. The moment you decide that your reality is shaped entirely by forces beyond your control, you stop being the protagonist of your own story and become a mere extra in the drama of your environment. You relinquish the power to change. Because if the cause of your failure is out there, then the solution is also out there, beyond your reach.
To move from the Adam archetype into a life of genuine influence, you must engage in what I call the radical audit of choice.
This is not a comfortable process. It requires you to sit in that suffocating silence and ask the most dangerous question you can pose to yourself.
In this specific outcome, what was the grain of truth I contributed to this failure?
It is easy to point to the chaos around you. It is easy to highlight the errors of colleagues or the volatility of the economy. But look closer. Where did you hesitate? Where did you lower your standards? Where did you ignore your internal compass because it was easier to follow the herd? The Adam archetype thrives in the shadow of it is not my fault. The master of his own destiny thrives in the light of I am responsible for my response. When you strip away the layers of excuse-making, you find something startling. You find that your lack of progress is rarely due to the world being against you. It is usually due to a misalignment between your intent and your integrity. You wanted the outcome, but you were unwilling to pay the cost of the discipline required to secure it. You wanted the summit, but you were unwilling to navigate the terrain you were given.
To transcend this, you must adopt the practice of total ownership. This does not mean you are responsible for everything that happens to you. Life is inherently unpredictable and often unfair. But you are 100% responsible for the internal machinery with which you process these events.
When you stop blaming the environment, you reclaim your agency. If the project failed, do not obsess over why others were incompetent. Obsess over how you could have communicated more clearly, prepared more thoroughly, or set boundaries more effectively. By doing this, you turn a moment of failure into a masterclass of growth. You transform from a victim of circumstance into a student of strategy. The narrative of the ancient garden is not merely a tale of a long-lost past. It is a mirror held up to your present. Every time you catch yourself about to cast blame, stop. Visualize that threshold. You are in the garden, and the question is being asked of you.
What have you done?
The world is waiting to see if you will continue to point fingers, or if you will finally stand tall and claim the heavy, beautiful burden of your own life. Responsibility is the price of freedom. If you want to be the architect of your own success, you must first be the judge of your own choices. The garden is not behind you. It is right here, in the choices you make this afternoon, in the emails you write, in the conversations you hold, and in the quiet moments where you decide who you are going to be. Choose to own your narrative, or it will be written for you by the forces you refuse to master. The choice is yours. The consequence is yours. The potential, entirely yours. The sun beats down on a horizon that offers no shade and no promise. Imagine standing in a vast, parched expanse, the dust swirling around your ankles, while you spend your days stacking timber with precise, rhythmic intent. To the distant observers, you are a spectacle of absurdity. They laugh, their voices carried away by the dry wind, questioning the sanity of a man who builds a vessel for a deluge that has never been seen in a land where the clouds remain stubbornly pale. This is the isolation of the visionary. This is the weight of the Noah archetype. We live in an age of instant gratification, where the metrics of success are measured in short-term feedback loops. We crave the validation of the now, the immediate applause, the viral numbers, the rapid promotion. But the Noah archetype operates on a temporal plane that defies the impatience of the modern world. This archetype represents the capacity to commit to a multi-decade vision while the rest of the world is busy with the mundane distractions of the present. Ask yourself, are you building an ark, or are you merely waiting for the rain? Most of us spend our lives waiting for conditions to be perfect before we begin our life's work. We wait for the right market, the right timing, the right support system. We operate under the delusion that if a goal is worthy, it should be met with external encouragement. But the history of the great builders reveals a different truth. When you are engaged in a work of significance, the silence of the world is not a sign of your failure. It is a testament to the scale of your foresight. Noah was not driven by the consensus of his peers. If he had listened to the majority, he would have remained a spectator in his own life, tethered to the comfortable, failing structures of his time. Instead, he adhered to a private blueprint, a standard of excellence that existed only in his mind and in the silent instruction he followed. He understood that when you are building something that is meant to endure a shift in the global paradigm, you cannot afford to be swayed by the fickle opinions of those who cannot see what you see. The challenge of this archetype is the dry season, that grueling period where you are putting in the work, exhausting your resources, and weathering the mockery of those who believe you have lost your way. It is the phase where the ego screams for recognition, and the spirit is tested by the sheer repetition of the task. How do you survive the dry season without losing your resolve? First, you must master the art of systems over feelings. Noah did not hammer every nail because he was overcome with sudden bursts of motivation. He hammered because he had established a system. Productivity is not an emotional state. It is a commitment to the process. When your goals are large, you must deconstruct them into daily, manageable routines that function independently of your fluctuating moods. On the days when the sky is blue and the world is laughing, you build because the system dictates it. On the days when you are weary and the vision feels like a burden, you build because the system holds you. Second, you must learn to protect your focus. In our hyper-connected society, our attention is the most valuable commodity we possess. The Noah archetype survives because he closes the door on the noise. You must identify the voices in your life, whether they are toxic social circles, unhelpful digital distractions, or the nagging internal voice of doubt, and consciously filter them out. Protect your ark from the contamination of skepticism. Your vision is fragile in its infancy, and it requires a protected environment to grow into a force capable of withstanding the future. Finally, realize that your work is not just for you. The strength of the Noah archetype lies in the profound understanding that you are preparing for a shift that you alone are currently equipped to handle. Your discipline today is the infrastructure for your security tomorrow, when the storm eventually breaks. And it always does, in the form of industry changes, life transitions, or personal crises. Those who spent their time building will find themselves elevated, while those who spent their time critiquing will be caught in the rising waters of uncertainty. Consider your own life. What is the arc you are neglecting? Is it a body of work you have been meaning to create? A level of skill you have been putting off for years? A business model that feels too bold for your current comfort zone? You have been given the vision. But vision without labor is merely a daydream. Do not be discouraged by the dryness of the ground. The persistence of your labor is the highest form of faith in your own potential. You are not meant to conform to the landscape of the present. You are meant to construct a future that can sustain you through the inevitable shifts of fortune. Take a breath, pick up the tool, and return to your work. The clouds may not be gathering yet, But the work you do in the silence is the only thing that will define your survival when the tides turn. You are the architect of your own endurance. Keep building. The season of the storm will arrive, and when it does, you will be the only one standing on solid ground. The stories we have journeyed through, the burden of Adam, the endurance of Noah, and the transformative leap of Abraham, are not merely artifacts of a distant, parchment-bound past. They are the recurring geometries of the human experience. They are the blueprints etched into the bedrock of our psyche, waiting for us to recognize their shapes in the mirrored reflection of our own lives. When we look at these archetypes, we are not observing ancient relics. We are examining the dormant DNA of our own potential. Resolution, in the grand narrative of one's life, is rarely a destination. It is, instead, a continuous refinement of the soul. We began by standing in the garden, confronted by the gravity of our own choices. We learned that the path to true agency begins not with the mastery of the world around us, but with the ruthless, necessary acceptance of our own accountability. You are the sole architect of your consequences. When you stop externalizing the blame, when you stop looking for the serpent or the circumstance to explain your stagnation, you reclaim the throne of your own existence. You realize that your past is not a prison, but a collection of data points from which you can derive a wiser future. But accountability is only the foundation. Once you have claimed your agency, you must find the courage to hold the vision. We looked at the archetype of the builder, the one who labors under the scorching sun while the world whispers of folly. The lesson of the arc is a profound one. Your conviction must always outweigh the consensus. To build anything of lasting value, a legacy, a business, a character of profound depth, you must learn to thrive in the isolation of your own purpose. You must learn to trust the silent rhythm of your own labor even when the horizon remains barren. The storm is not your enemy. It is the proving ground for the structure you have labored to create. And finally, we touched upon the most frightening and liberating truth of all, the necessity of the departure. To become the architect of your own destiny, you must possess the audacity to leave, whether it is the comfort of a stagnant career, the safety of a limiting belief, or the familiarity of a community that no longer serves your growth. There comes a time when the call is clear. You must go forth from the known. You must walk into the land that you do not yet see, trusting in the strength of your own step rather than the security of the ground you are leaving behind. This is the ultimate act of faith, the psychological surrender of the small self to the infinite possibility of who you are becoming. As we bring this exploration to a close, consider where you stand on this continuum. Are you still hiding behind the excuses of the garden, waiting for someone else to pave the way? Are you currently in the heat of the dry season, doubting the purpose of your daily grind? Or are you standing at the threshold of a great departure, fearing the uncertainty of the horizon? Understand this. There is no perfect human in these stories. There are only individuals who dared to integrate these archetypes into their own consciousness. You do not need to be a titan of history to be a person of consequence. You only need to be the person who decides that today is the day your narrative changes. The ancient wisdom is not meant to be read and shelved. It is meant to be lived. It is meant to be the lens through which you view your daily challenges. When you feel the weight of a difficult decision, summon the courage of Adam to own it. When you feel the crushing loneliness of a long-term goal, summon the patience of Noah to build it. When you feel the paralyzing grip of comfort, summon the adventurous spirit of Abraham to leave it. You are the author of a story that is being written in real time. The ink is your actions, and the paper is the span of your days. Do not let your story be a derivative work, a shallow echo of the expectations placed upon you by a world that thrives on your conformity. Be the original. Be the one who recognizes that the ancient patterns are not chains, but wings. As you go forward from this moment, carry these archetypes with you as companions in the quiet hours. When the world grows loud and the path seems obscured, remember that you are part of a lineage of people who have faced the exact same tensions, the same fears, and the same vast, terrifying potential. The struggle is the proof that you are growing. The uncertainty is the proof that you are expanding. The story does not end here. It begins again, with every breath you take and every choice you honor. Take the burden, build the vision, and make the leap. You were designed for more than mere existence. You were designed to transcend the limitations of your environment and define your own place in the tapestry of time. The horizon is calling. The tools are in your hands. The choice, as it has always been, remains yours alone. Go forth and write a story that is worthy of the potential residing deep within you. The world may not yet see what you are building, but you know the truth of what you are capable of, and that is all the validation you will ever truly need. Your legacy is not something you inherit. It is something you forge, blow by blow, choice by choice, day by relentless day. Start now, and never, ever look back at the garden you have left behind.